those crucial competencies that prepare students for the workforce can be effectively integrated into the K-12 education system. In a world where the job market is constantly evolving, ensuring that our students are equipped with these skills has never been more critical. Throughout the seminar, we will hear from leading experts who will share their insights on different aspects of employability skills, including policy frameworks, curriculum integration, teacher development, and industry partnerships. I encourage all of you to engage actively in the discussions as we collectively explore strategies that can shape the future of education and workforce. To give our welcoming remarks, we have Ms. Mahra Almatoui, the director of the Regional Center for Educational Planning. She's a prominent figure in education planning, management, and policy development, with a wealth of experience across the UAE, GCC, and Arab states. A graduate of the UAE Government Leaders Program, Ms. Mahra has been instrumental in various educational initiatives, including the UNESCO Education for All 2015 initiative. She's also the UAE's representative in several international committees, contributing significantly to the educational policy landscape. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Mahra.
Thank you, Patricia, for this introduction. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السادة الحضور، خبرائنا المتميزون المتواجدون معنا في هذه الندوة، يسعدنا أن نرحب بكم في هذه الندوة التربوية والتي نعقدها تحت عنوان دمج مهارات التوظيف في المنهاج التعليمي. تأتي هذه الندوة استجابة ضرورية للتحولات السريعة التي يشهدها سوق العمل في دولنا، والتي تتطلب منا إعادة النظر في أساليب التعليم. أساليب التعليم التقليدية لم يعد النجاح الأكاديمي وحده كافيا لإعداد الأجيال القادمة لمستقبل مهني ناجح، فالعالم اليوم بات يشهد تغييرات هيكلية عميقة مدفوعة بالتكنولوجيا والرقمنة، مما يستدعي علينا تزويد الطلاب بمهارات قابلة للتكيف مع المتغيرات المستمرة في قطاع التعليم وقطاع التكنولوجيا وقطاع سوق العمل. تشير العديد من الدراسات إلى أن القدرة على التواصل والتفكير النقدي والتعاون في العمل وحل المشكلات أصبحت من المتطلبات الأساسية التي يسعى إليها أصحاب العمل في جميع القطاعات الاقتصادية، وهو ما يدعى بالمهارات الناعمة. وتبين التقارير أن هذه المهارات تسهم بشكل مباشر في تحسين فرص الأفراد للحصول على وظائف وتسرع من تقدمهم الوظيفي. فقد أظهرت أبحاث منظمة العمل الدولية أن 60% من الشركات تواجه صعوبة في العثور على مرشحين يتمتعون بالمهارات الأساسية على الرغم من توافر المؤهلات الأكاديمية، مما يعكس الفجوة المتزايدة بين التعليم وسوق العمل. كما تشير البيانات إلى أن 36 من العاملين في الدول النامية يعانون من حالة تسمى بفائض التعليم، أي أن مستواهم التعليمي يفوق متطلبات وظائفهم الحالية، مما يؤدي إلى التدني في مستويات الرضا المهني. لذلك فإن دمج مهارات التوظيف في المناهج الدراسية يتطلب منا تجاوز الأساليب التعليمية التقليدية نحو نموذج تعليمي شامل ومتكامل. وتشير الأبحاث إلى أن التعلم القائم على المشاريع والأنشطة التطبيقية يعزز من مهارات الطلاب في التفكير النقدي والعمل الجماعي، وتوفر هذه الأنشطة للطلاب فرصة لتطبيق المعارف التي يتعلمونها في بيئات عمل واقعية، مما يعمل على تعميق فهمهم للمفاهيم الدراسية وربطها بسياقات مهنية عملية. على سبيل المثال، يمكن للطلاب المشاركة في مشروعات جماعية يتم فيها تقسيم الأدوار وتحديد المهام بوضوح، مما يحاكي بيئة العمل الفعلية ويعزز من قدراتهم على التواصل والتعاون وتقديم الأفكار وتبادلها وتحليلها، وبالتالي يعزز لديهم التفكير النقدي. يلعب المعلمون كذلك دورا حاسما في إنجاح مثل هذه الجهود، حيث يعد تدريبهم المستمر وتطوير مهاراتهم أحد العوامل الأساسية لضمان تحقيق نتائج ملموسة، بحيث يجب أن تشمل برامج التدريب المهني للمعلمين توجيهات عملية حول كيفية دمج مهارات التوظيف في محتواهم الدرسي وفي إجراءات واستراتيجيات التدريس التي يمارسونها في الصف الدراسي، بالإضافة إلى تطوير قدراتهم في استخدام أساليب التقييم المناسبة بحيث المناسبة لتقييم المهارات، بحيث فالتقرير الصادر عن المركز الإقليمي للتخطيط التربوي حول وذلك في دراسة متخصصة حول تطلعات الشباب من أنظمة التعليم إلى أن التوجه المهني والتعاون بين المعلمين يسهم بشكل كبير في تحسين جودة التعليم ويوفر شبكات التعلم والتوجيه المهني منصات لتبادل الخبرات وتقديم الدعم المتبادل، مما يعزز من كفاءة المعلمين في تقديم هذه المهارات للطلاب. ويعد التعاون بين المؤسسات التعليمية وقطاعات الأعمال ضرورا لتحقيق التكامل بين التعليم وسوق العمل، ويمكن للشركات المحلية أن تسهم في تصميم المناهج الدراسية من خلال تحديد المهارات الأكثر طلبا في سوق العمل، كما تتيح برامج التدريب المهني والتطبيق العمل للطلاب فرصة اكتساب خبرة مباشرة في بيئات عمل حقيقية، مما يزيد من جاهزيتهم ويعزز فرصهم في التوظيف. وتشير الدراسات إلى أن البرامج التي تجمع بين التعلم النظري والتطبيق العملي تؤدي إلى تحسين فرص التوظيف بنسبة تصل إلى 40%، حيث تمكن هذه البرامج الطلاب من بناء شبكات مهنية واستكشاف مسارات وظيفية متنوعة. يستدعي تحقيق هذه الأهداف تبني سياسات تعليمية واضحة وإطار تنظيمي يدعم دمج مهارات التوظيف في المناهج، ويجب أن يتضمن ذلك تخصيص الموارد والتمويل اللازمين لدعم هذه المبادرات، بالإضافة لتقديم حوافز للمدارس والمعلمين الذين يسهمون في تعزيز هذه المهارات لدى الطلاب. كما يجب على صناع السياسات على تطوير برامج مستدامة لضمان استمرارية هذه الجهود وتحقيق أثر إيجابي طويل الأمد، حيث تشير تقديرات البنك الدولي إلى أن تحسين جودة التعليم وتوفير التدريب المهني يساهمان في رفع الناتج المحلي الإجمالي بنسبة تصل إلى 2% سنوياً، مما يبرر أهمية هذه الجهود في تعزيز التنمية الاقتصادية والاجتماعية. إضافة إلى ذلك فإن الاستثمار في تعليم وتدريب الشباب يعد أهم العوامل التي تسهم في تحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة، وخاصة الهدف الرابع المتعلق بتوفير تعليم شامل وجيد وتعزيز فرص التعلم مدى الحياة للجميع، وكذلك الأهداف الأخرى المتعلقة بهذا الهدف والمتعلقة بتوفير العمل اللائق وأيضا الفقر وغيرها من هذه الأهداف. في الختام، تمثل هذه الندوة فرصة جوهرية لنشر الوعي بأهمية دمج مهارات التوظيف في المناهج الدراسية، فهي ليست مجرد منصة لتعزيز التعاون بين المؤسسات التعليمية وسوق العمل، بل أداة فعالة لتغيير المفاهيم التقليدية حول دور التعليم في إعداد الطلاب لمستقبل مهني ناجح. كما أن دمج مهارات التوظيف في التعليم ليس رفاهية، بل هو ضرورة حتمية تضمن إعداد جيل قادر على التكيف مع متطلبات العصر والمساهمة بفعالية في بناء مجتمع واقتصاد مستدام. وتهدف هذه الندوة أيضا لتحفيز صناع القرار والمعلمين وأصحاب العمل على تبني نهج عملي مستدام متكامل وتحويل هذه الرؤية إلى واقع ملموس. ولن يتحقق نجاح هذه الجهود إلا بالالتزام المشترك من جميع الأطراف لضمان تحقيق نتائج إيجابية تنعكس على الطلاب وعلى مستقبلهم العملي وكذلك على المجتمعات. علينا أن نغتنم هذه الفرصة لنتبادل الأفكار والخبرات ولنتعرف على المستجدات في هذا الموضوع. أشكركم جميعا على حضوركم ومشاركتكم الفعالة في هذه الندوة، وتطلع أن تكون مناقشاتنا اليوم خطوة مهمة نحو بناء أنظمة تعليمية تتوافق مع تطلعات قياداتنا وتواكب التغيرات العالمية. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Machra, for your insightful welcoming to our participants today. For the first session, we will have 3 presenters, and after the presentations, we will have a Q&A session. Feel free to write your questions to our presenters in the chat box, and we will get back to them if possible by the end of their presentations. And I'm going to move towards presenting our next guest. Our next speaker is Dr. Jeffrey Matu, an education researcher specializing in technical and vocational education and training and education for sustainable development. With extensive experience across East Africa, the Middle East, and Northern Africa, Dr. Matu's work focuses on aligning technical and vocational education systems with industry needs and integrating sustainable development goals into educational frameworks. Today, you will be discussing enhancing workforce readiness through vocational educational training, a policy framework for integrating employability skills in Kenya. Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Jeffrey Matu.
Thank you for that warm introduction. Let me put up my presentation. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're joining us from. And if you're in the US, happy Elections Day. My name is Jeffrey Matu, as mentioned. And it's a pleasure to be here. My background is in workforce development, where I've worked on labor market assessments to help education institutions align their curricula with industry needs and to ensure that workforce is well aligned. Lately, my research has focused on bridging the gap between education and employment, specifically in TVET, technical, vocational education and training. I've been exploring how we can make learning more engaging and practical by using documentary-based learning, role-playing, simulations to teach both technical and soft skills. Today, we'll dive into enhancing workforce readiness through TVET with a focus on integrating employability skills in Kenya's K-12 curriculum, and I should be specific, the 8 to 12 part of the curriculum. We'll look at what these skills entail, why they're essential, and some effective strategies for developing them in students. To start us off, let's do a quick exercise on employability skills. What are they, why they matter, and how can we support students in building them? These two questions here help us think about the skills essential in today's workplace and how we can start building those skills early, especially in vocational and technical education. Employability skills, both the technical and soft, are crucial for not only landing a job, but also growing within a career. With the rapidly changes in today's economy, we need education systems that give students adaptable, practical skills to meet the evolving industry demands. So let's just take a moment to reflect on these questions before I dive into my presentation. So I'll give maybe 10 seconds to just read the question. Today, I'm introducing a framework to bridge the gap between education and employment in Kenya's TVET system. This approach emphasizes experiential methods like documentary-based learning, role play, and case studies to engage students in both technical and soft skills, which are often missing in traditional teaching. Why are employability skills so vital? Skills like problem solving, communication, adaptability, and industry-specific technical competencies are critical for today's job market. Drawing from my past research, we know that these skills enhance career readiness and growth. So today I will address three key questions. What are the essential employability skills for the workplace? How do these skills contribute to career readiness? And what strategies can educators use to build these skills in the K-12 vocational setting? My main aim is to close the gap by using engaging, hands-on learning methods, preparing students to move smoothly into the workforce. So let's explore how this can be achieved. It's important for us to clarify what we mean by employability skills, specifically distinguishing between technical skills and soft skills. Technical skills are job-specific skills that are hands-on skills and competencies directly aligned with specifically industry needs. In vocational and technical education, these skills could range from using specialized machinery to understanding industry-specific software or safety protocols. They are foundational to performing particular tasks, particularly in a given field. On the other hand, we have soft skills. These are less about specific job functions and more about how individuals interact, adapt, and problem solve in a variety of settings. Skills like communication, teamwork, and adaptability aren't tied to one particular job, but are universally valued across industries. They are what allow individuals to be flexible, collaborative, and resilient in today's rapidly evolving work environment. So in today's presentation, we'll cover both types of skills, as both are crucial for building a well-rounded, work-ready individual. We'll explore how technical and soft skills play different but complementary roles within vocational and technical education, and why these skills are essential and critical for Kenya's workforce development goals. To set the stage, let's look at Kenya's educational and employment landscape. Despite increased investments in education, there remains a significant skills gap between what TVET students learn and what employers actually need. This gap contributes to high youth unemployment and underemployment, as traditional TVET methods focus heavily on theory and structured skills, but often miss the hands-on experiential learning that prepares students for real-world challenges. To bridge this gap, we need to move towards more dynamic, interactive approaches. Globally, countries such as Saudi Arabia and Ghana, just to mention a few, are using social media and collaborative platforms to make learning more practical and engaging. However, in Kenya, tools like documentary-based learning, role play, and case studies remain underutilized in informal setting, which is a missed opportunity. Today's presentation will focus on a framework to bring these alternative teaching methods into Kenya's vocational classroom. We'll explore how this approach can redefine employability skills, improve career readiness, and offer practical strategies for educators. Ultimately, the goal is to show how this shift can enhance Kenya's TVET system, making learning more meaningful and better aligned with industry needs. In this study, we'll set out to understand how employability skills are integrated within TVET programs worldwide, aiming to gather best practices that could inform policy recommendations for Kenya. To do this, we conducted a bibliometric analysis using the ERIC database, which provides extensive educational insights. This approach allowed us to capture a wide array of practices and trends from different educational settings and regions. Using bibliometric analysis was key here, as it allowed us to systematically explore the research landscape on employability skills. Through this method, we could analyze a substantial volume of literature, identifying major themes and impactful studies. This broader global perspective highlights innovative approaches such as documentary-based learning and role-playing that could be beneficial in Kenya's vocational and technical educational context. In our data collection, we focused on elements such as publication year, key topics, author networks, and thematic areas. Using our software for the analysis, we were able to map these elements to visualize trends and pinpoint effective practices. The goal was to extract insights that are both globally informed and adaptable to Kenya's unique education environment. In essence, by using bibliometric approach, we ensure our recommendations are grounded on a well-rounded, theoretical grounded analysis rather than solely relying on regional examples. So in terms of our finding, our bibliometric analysis revealed consistent global emphasis on core employability skills that employers value, including technical skills, adaptability, teamwork, and problem solving. These skills are universal, yet often inconsistent within traditional education frameworks, highlighting a global need for integrated practical approaches in TVET. We also identified documentary-based learning as an emerging approach in technical and vocational education. It offers students the opportunity to observe real-world scenarios, helping them understand industry demands in a highly visual and engaging format. This approach is especially relevant for Kenya, where industry-based learning opportunities can be limited, and documentary-based learning provides a feasible alternative to bringing real-life context into the classroom. The analysis also pinpointed to the effectiveness of role-playing and case studies as a method to foster experiential learning and practical skills development without requiring advanced technology. This method supports both technical and soft skill acquisition, such as teamwork and communication, which are essential for technical careers. In Kenya's educational context, this could address the skills mismatch by simulating workplace scenarios within the TVET classroom. We also identified platforms such as YouTube, TikTok, which are widely used for informal learning, as imagined as underutilized but valuable tools for structured employability skills training. Using social media as part of a documentary-based curriculum allows educators to engage students in familiar, interactive formats, making learning more relatable and accessible. So in the case of Kenya's context, where resources for traditional training may be constrained, digital platforms provide cost-effective alternatives to deliver hands-on education. Our findings also suggest that while technical skills remain crucial, soft skills like adaptability, problem solving, and collaboration are increasingly prioritized by employers. The proposed methods, such as the documentary-based learning, role-playing, and case studies, can enhance the integration of these soft skills alongside technical skills, preparing students for a broader range of workplace challenges. So this was just some of the findings that emerged from the bibliometric analysis. Given the findings, I would like to position a framework for integrating employability skills into TVET classroom. Our aim with this framework is to bridge the existing gap between education provided in TVET institution and the real demands of the labor market. This framework is designed to equip students with critical employability skills, ensuring that they're not only technically proficient, but also adaptable and ready for the workplace. It's a structured approach to blend practical and soft skills within a classroom setting. So step one, we need to ensure that the curriculum is aligned with specific employability outcomes. This means identifying key technical and soft skills that are highly valued by employers and systematically embedding them into the teaching objectives. By doing so, we make sure that every course or module contributes directly to these skills areas, helping students understand what is expected in their careers. Step two, teachers are central to implementing this framework. This step emphasizes training educators on using documentary-based methods and low-tech simulations like role-playing and case studies. By introducing these techniques, we create a more engaging learning environment. So for example, documentary might simulate a workplace scenario, while role-playing allows students to act out, solve real-world problems, enhancing both their technical and interpersonal skills. Step three, we look to develop strong partnerships with industry. And this goes obviously without saying when you're looking at TVET or technical education, there's a symbiotic relationship with industries. These partnerships are crucial because they ensure that the scenarios we use in the classroom are grounded in real relevant experiences. Industry partners can provide insights into the skills they prioritize, making our curriculum are directly reflective of workplace needs and giving students context for their learning. So this framework leverages experiential, documentary-based, and simulation techniques to create a learning environment that is engaging, contextually relevant, and aligned with the evolving demands of the job market. By implementing this structure, TVET institutions in Kenya can better prepare students to step into their careers with confidence, equipping them with both technical and essential soft skills. Now that we've outlined the framework for integrating employability skills, let's just take a look at how similar strategies have been implemented globally. By examining cases from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Taiwan, Ghana, and Malawi, we can see how other countries use social media and innovative methods to create immersive real-world learning experience. In Saudi Arabia, for instance, nursing education leverages social media for documentary-style videos, allowing students to observe real healthcare scenarios. Kenya's TVET programs could use similar content for fields like automotive repair or carpentry, giving students realistic insights. In Kuwait and Taiwan, students use platforms like WhatsApp for collaborative problem solving, simulating workplace scenarios. Kenyan instructors could set up similar case studies discussions where students role play as different industry stakeholders, building teamwork and problem-solving skills. In Ghana, teachers use social media for continuous learning networks, while in Malawi, students document their learning journey via blogs, encouraging self-reflection and peer learning. Kenyan students could do the same, creating video diaries or blog posts about their technical task. By integrating social media with documentary-based learning and simulations, we can make TVET education in Kenya more dynamic and engaging. Students actively participate, discuss, and contribute to that content which really mirrors the workplace that they'll be transitioning into, which prepares them effectively for the future careers. Now, let's just explore some targeted policy recommendations that address key challenges identified in integrating employability skills in Kenya's TVET system. Each of these recommendations aims to bridge the gap between education and employment, making the learning experience more dynamic, relevant, and aligned with industry expectation. The first challenge we address is the skills mismatch, where the competencies TVET graduates acquire do not fully align with labor market needs. To tackle this, we recommend developing national competency frameworks that are aligned with industry standards for both technical and soft skills. This competency framework will directly link the curriculum to actual labor market demands, ensuring that what's taught in the classroom reflects what's needed in the workforce, thus reducing the skills gap significantly. Next, we look at the need to make learning more engaging and interactive. Traditional methods can be limiting, and students miss out on dynamic hands-on experiences. Our recommendation here is to secure funding for teacher training programs that focus on documentary-based learning, role-playing, and simulations. This empowers educators to incorporate engaging experiential methods that make learning more relevant and impactful for students, especially in vocational settings. The third challenge is limited access to direct industry-based learning, which many students in TVET face. Industry placements are often limited, creating an experience gap. To address this, we suggest establishing partnerships with industry to co-develop practical scenario-based modules. By doing so, we can bring realistic work scenarios into the classroom, providing students with essential insights and hands-on experiences without direct industry placements. Moving on, there's a critical need for developing a comprehensive skill set in students beyond technical skills to include essential soft skills like communication and adaptability. We recommend incorporating assessments for employability skills covering both technical competencies and essential soft skills. This ensures that graduates are evaluated on a full spectrum of abilities, boosting their career readiness and employability. Lastly, many educational institutions face resource limitations, which restricts hands-on learning opportunities. Here, our recommendation is to invest in both digital and low-tech resources that facilitate documentary-based and simulation-driven learning. This approach is cost-effective and adaptable, making hands-on learning feasible in classrooms with limited equipment. These policy recommendations are designed to create a more robust and responsive TVET system. By addressing these challenges directly, we aim to better prepare students for the current workforce, ensuring that they graduate with technical and soft skills necessary to succeed and thrive in the labor market. This is my last slide, but this is just some closing thoughts. In terms of key takeaway, our approach is about bridging the gap between education and employment by embedding documentary-based learning, role play, and case studies into the TVET system. What is essentially powerful here is the use of underutilized platforms like social media, which not only makes learning accessible, but also engaging for students who are digital natives. By incorporating this familiar and interactive platforms, we're bringing real-world scenario and hands-on learning into the classroom. The future of learning truly depends on our ability as educators and policymakers to utilize every available platform to engage, teach, and inspire. So my call to action, let's commit to transforming our classroom into dynamic skill-building spaces where students not only gain knowledge, but develop the critical skills they need for the workforce. Together, we can make education a direct pathway to career success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jeffrey, for your insightful sharing of experience and how your framework can help bridge the gap between education and employment. I will remind our attendees that they can share their questions and their comments with our panelists at the end of the first session. So please write your comments on the Q&A chat box, and we will, as possible, we will share your comments and your questions with the panelists. I will move forward to our next panelist, Dr. Shia Seither. I hope I have pronounced it well. A research fellow from the Cambodia Development Resource Institute, who holds a PhD in education from the Education University of Hong Kong. His expertise lies in employability skills development, with extensive research on student engagement in STEM education and careers. Dr. Seisa will be presenting on development of employability skills in students, a theoretical perspective. Please welcome Dr. Shia. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fidago. So good afternoon, participants here. My name is Satya Chia, and I'm a research fellow at a research institute in Cambodia, a country in Southeast Asia. So, so as you have listened to Dr. Matu on presenting on his perspective and experience in employability skills and employability skills development framework in Kenya. So I'm going to share with you today some of the work I've done in my PhD thesis and the work I've done at my current workplace. So this is I'm going to present some literature that I've done for my PhD work, and then some perspective experience sharing from Cambodia context. So let's start first with the meaning of employability skills. So as you have listened to Dr. Matu's presentation, you know that employability skills are very important in today's labor market, as these not only ensure that a student will get employment after graduation, but also guarantee long-term success throughout their career pathway. And this will benefit the student themselves, the workforce, the community, and the economy of the country in general. So there are many employability skill framework. I'm going to present two important frameworks in the development of employability skills. The first framework is called Career Edge. So in this framework, employability skills are defined by 5 attributes and skill, which, as you can see in this figure, career development, experience in work and life, and the degree subject knowledge and understanding and skill, the genetic skills, and emotional intelligence, which combine to provide student with experience of self-efficacy, confidence, self-esteem, and ultimately lead to employability skills. And the second framework is the 21st century skill framework called K-SAFE, that has 10 skills categorized into 4 groups. So in this framework, you see that employability skills are divided into thinking, working, tools, and living. in each part, you have a smaller skill like critical thinking, problem solving, communication, ICT, and information literacy, and uh, and citizenship and career personal and social responsibility. So these are some of the popular framework in literature regarding employment skills. And then we are going to look into how these skills can be developed. So in short, employment skills are composed of what we call the elements in employable skills these days. Students need to possess technical or we call hard skill or the degree specific skills and generic skills which has many names such as soft skill or 21st century skills. But what is more important is the career preparation and development that also define employability among students, which can be university preparation and job preparation and career development. So in literature on employable skill development, I divided into two parts. First, we look into program level. When design program, we can look into this model. So, an early work by Knight and York look into modules of learning in addition to the teaching and the regular teaching and learning in class to include the work experience, entrepreneurship modules, career advice, portfolio profile, and records of achievement of students. So students need to have exposure to work experience as well as given space and time to reflect on their learning and on their career development. Another in another work in South Africa, so 10 principles have been proposed. So in order to develop employable skills, program developer need to consider this. For example, they need to have a clear framework written out based on the context and their labor market. What skills and attribute um, does the labor market need, and define this clearly in their curriculum in their program. And employment skill should be taught in a context, which means it cannot be taken away into separate modules by itself. And employment skill is a learning process. So it's not just a course or tool that student can learn from, but it's a process that takes a period of time. And a good way to teach employable skill is through a student-centered teaching method. And in the next principle is the use of work integrated learning, in which students should be exposed to some example of work integrated learning, internship and workplace simulation. And again, we talk about student should be given time to reflect on their own learning, on their career development pathway, right? At classroom level, research has shown that good teaching is a factor that affect employable skill development. But what is more important than good teaching is the learning community, the learning group that a student have, either inside or outside class. So a student can form a learning team, a learning group, to study together after class. In another study in Australia, find that activity that encourage active and collaborative learning, such as group discussion and debates, role play, and so on, have nurtured the development of employability skills. And the study of in Finland also confirm the influence of active and collaborative learning on employability skill development and the negative effect of traditional teaching practice such as lecturing, reading, and working alone. While it also emphasized the importance of various form of assessment rather than the traditional written paper, pencil assessment, writing assessment. In my study, I look into employability skill development through student engagement framework, in which engagement is defined as behavioral, cognitive, and emotional dimension. And in that, the findings show that good teaching, having clear goals for the students, proper workload and assessment, and institutional factors such as curriculum, culture, environment, and also personal factor of the student, their interest, their intention, and values. All of these factors influence the engagement of student. That means if we have good teaching, then good teaching will increase, will enhance student engagement in they put more effort, they think more, and they are more happy with their work, their study. And this will finally enhance their learning outcomes in the form of employability skill or soft skill development. However, in my study as well, I categorize the engagement into various forms. So students can engage in the work academically, socially, and also they engage in activity that build their career development. While soft skills that are developed at schools are actually academic soft skills, and they need to convert this academic soft skill into professional soft skill through workplace experience, either internship, either voluntary work, or project-based work, and so on. So this is very important as well as learning in classes, in schools alone is not enough. So from all of this, I have put out a few recommendations, and from my experience in research in Cambodia. So first of all, so this is basically for program developer to consider when revising or developing programs, academic programs for students. First of all, we need to think how to prepare students for their journey and career journey. And this preparation should be done as early as possible. So we don't need to wait until a student reach grade 12, but we can start early, like from lower secondary school education level. And we should have proper counseling and orientation on their career path. Like, for example, when they are in high school, then we need to tell them what they will do, what they will choose, whether they will go to TVET or they will go to university. And what is also important is like major and major selection as well. So research from Cambodia has shown that a high school student do not have clear interests yet. They do not know what they want to study um, after they graduate from high school. So also students do not have enough information. So it's very difficult for students to decide what they will do after they graduate. So some choose their university major based on social norm, based on suggestion from family and friends. Next, we need to have clear planning of what skills to include into the curriculum. So this will give. So when we plan, we don't include only academic skills, but we also need to think about these soft skills like communication, problem solving, critical thinking, and so on, and state those objectives clearly so that the students and the teachers know, the student knows what they are going to learn, and the teachers know that what they are going to teach. So with clear goal and direction, then the learning can go more smoothly and objectives can be achieved better. Second, in the age of technology, now it's very important to teach students the information, digital and technology skills in addition to all other skills. So experience from Cambodia has shown that although students have access to technology, most of them use the technology, especially social media, only for entertaining purposes. Social media and also for gaming, rather than using technology for information searching, useful information searching, or for learning and so on. So these also need to be taught and practiced to both the students, actually the teacher as well. In terms of teaching methods, of course, we cannot totally abandon the teacher-centered teaching, learning, the use of lecture, information sharing, drill, and so on. These are still important, but we need to know what levels that we need teacher-centered and active and collaborative learning. So the things that we need to be clear is that if we want to increase the chance, so as literature has shown, for students to learn employable skills, soft skills, then students need to be exposed to active learning. Active learning, which means students work together in group, students think, use higher order thinking, discussion and debate rather than memorizing lesson. That is active learning. Or the use of other form like case study or inquiry-based learning, in which students can learn to be independent. And this should be encouraged, highly encouraged in the later level of high school level, from upper secondary school level. And what is also important is teachers also need to be taught how to use this learning strategy, and they need to be trained regularly to update their teaching methods. Another important aspect is the assessment. So nowadays, the use of memory-based or question answer tests very easy to design, but they do not encourage active learning. So assessment should be in various form. For one thing, various form assessment will make the teaching and learning more interesting, more engaging, and more relevant to the students. And students should be exposed to various authentic assessment form, like a case study, group projects, or a presentation. So the thing is that assessment need to have a variety and also authentic in nature. And last of all, include extracurricular activities in the curriculum. We think about real life project, we can think about a competition and volunteer work. So as literature have shown that learning in class, student will only be exposed to academic skills. So student need also to get exposure of a workplace experience through entrepreneurship or a coding or ICT project and volunteer work, and get to visit an industry, workplace, and so on. I think this is the end of my presentation, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shia, for your theoretical perspective on the development of employability skills for the students. I have a quick reminder to our attendees. You can write your questions to our panelists in the Q&A chat box, and we will share it with them at the end of the first session, which will be after my next presenter. Our next speaker is Dr. Will Tyson, a professor of sociology at the University of South Florida. For over 2 decades, Dr. Tyson has led National Science Foundation projects focusing on how educational experiences shape students' career pathways, particularly in STEM fields. His talk today, How Students Learn Employability Skills in High Schools, Engineering and Engineering Technology courses, promises to offer valuable insights into the role of education in developing career-ready students. Let's welcome Dr. Will Tyson.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Will, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Just getting this ready. All right. Can everyone see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see? Okay. All right. So, first of all, greetings from the United States, where it is today our election day. It promises to be a long day, so it's early in the morning here. I'm very happy that I've had the opportunity to come to speak with you today, and that my regional research is gaining a national audience. First of all, a little bit more about me. My educational background is actually in STEM and sociology. I graduated from the North Carolina School of Science and Mathematics, so I have a STEM background myself. And but my background is in sociology, and so basically my research applies my STEM background to broader educational topics within looking at a broader STEM education. I do have over 2 decades of experience working on National Science Foundation grants and contracts in various roles as a principal investigator, co-principal investigator, and I'm currently on several projects as a PI, co-PI, researcher, and evaluator. So my research addresses the problem of workforce skills gaps and how high school career and technical education courses can help fill those gaps by teaching students the employability skills or soft skills that are desired in the workplace. Now, these are the skills that can prepare students to get a job in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields and or attend a college right at a high school. STEM employers need to hire young workers with the right technical skills to replace an aging technical workforce. Most employers in my research study that I'll present today are active on K-12 and higher education advisory boards and host internships and apprenticeships to help train young workers. Almost all of them are willing to train up high school students or recent graduates who possess the necessary personal and interpersonal skills. And these employability skills include the cultural capital needed to apply and benefit from their academic skills and cognitive ability. So employability skills can and should be taught in high school. The U.S. In the 1990s, the U.S. Department of Labor published reports that recommended that high schools take a more active role in teaching employability skills to our students. Yet, despite an acknowledgement that these skills can be taught and learned, employability is generally considered to be an individual characteristics that either workers have or they don't have. And so it's similar to how unemployment is treated as an individual problem instead of a structural issue. Of course, as a sociologist, this concerns me. And we know employability skills help young workers to adapt to 21st century workplace. So what are employability skills? Now, this research draws from interviews with industry leaders who explain what interpersonal skills mean to them. But I also draw from the U.S. Department of Education Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education Employability Skills Framework. This focuses on several areas, but this research focuses on the effective relationships piece, looking at interpersonal skills, which include collaboration as a team, working independently, maintaining a positive attitude, good social skills, leadership skills, etc. Personal qualities include personal responsibility, flexibility, strong work ethic. Now, my research looks at 3 broad research gaps in contemporary education in order to better understand how employability skills are taught and learned in career and technical education classrooms. First of all, research in K-12 STEM education generally focuses on academic STEM courses, and the previous speaker alluded to this somewhat. Traditional math and science courses, algebra, calculus, chemistry, physics, that center around a theoretical approach to learning core concepts. There's far less research on applied STEM courses that focus on practical application of these academic STEM knowledge concepts to real-world experiences. Second, current research focus on academic STEM courses generally presumes STEM pathways, linear STEM pathways, in which students transition directly from high school math and science courses into STEM bachelor's degree programs at four-year universities en route to STEM careers that require a bachelor's degree. This research doesn't account for delayed transitions from high school to higher education, in which students work full-time before enrolling in a community college or university. It also doesn't include the benefits of working part-time in a STEM field while enrolled. And there's little research that actually addresses the benefit of doing STEM jobs versus your traditional, food service, retail type jobs that students often have while enrolled. Third, despite the growing discussion of skills gaps and employability skills frameworks, much of the contemporary research is still exploratory, seeking to understand exactly what employability skills are desired by employers and perhaps also by higher education faculty and administrators. So through employer interviews, this study describes employability skills that employers expect potential workers to possess. And this study takes the additional step of examining exactly why these skills are necessary and how they are utilized from the perspectives of employers. In addition, little research addresses how high school students can learn the personal and impersonal skills necessary for the workforce, as well as the strategies teachers use to teach these skills. So interviews with teachers and students examine how these employability skills are taught by teachers and learned by students. So today I will introduce and briefly discuss 3 core questions. First, which employability skills do employers seek from young workers and why? Then how do Career Academy teachers infuse employability skill development into courses, including daily lessons, projects, and activities? Then how do students perceive these personal and interpersonal, their personal and interpersonal skill development? So this is based on a regional study in the Tampa Bay region of the state of Florida. My research team recruited schools and employers based on recommendations from our community college partners, our 2-year college partners, school district administrators, and STEM curricular directors. This resulted in interviews with 4 teachers and 70 students in engineering or engineering-themed technology classrooms at 4 schools in the Tampa Bay region. We also talked to 26 employers from small, medium, and large businesses located in 4 counties in the Tampa Bay region of the state of Florida. Most of these interviews were between 30 and 60 minutes. The employers in these interviews, well, we talked about a lot of things in these interviews, but for this study, we're looking at how the employers describe their ideal workers and the technical skills and employability skills these workers possess. For students, we ask questions about hands-on learning, overcoming challenges, and achieving the goals that encourage students to describe the personal and interpersonal skills necessary to complete hands-on station activities and overcome a range of academic and personal and social challenges to achieve their short-term and long-term goals. So a brief discussion about the advanced manufacturing industry. These jobs often offer higher pay, higher productivity growth, and more opportunities than traditional manufacturing jobs. Despite engaging in more technology and requiring more training than typical manufacturing jobs, advanced manufacturing jobs generally only require a high school diploma or equivalent. A lot of the companies that hire in our region and across the country are small family-owned or privately owned, what we would call mom and pop operations. The firms tend to hire locally, especially the small firms. They tend to rely on educational institutions, the high schools, colleges, technical colleges, and universities to train workers. But this results in employers complaining about the lack of cultural fit and the lack of technical skills and employability skills that they find in the local labor markets. So the career academies, these are programs that are set up in the Florida Career and Professional Education Act within the state of Florida, and provides the infrastructure that requires all districts, 67 counties in the state of Florida, each having their own district, to have career academies. These are courses that balance college preparation with career readiness. In a typical day, the classes begin with a short lecture that supplements hands-on station activities that simulate what students would be doing as workers in the workplace. Students work individually, in pairs, or in small groups in a variety of activities. Some of the key activities include individual activities include preparation for certification exams and design day activities where students work on their own projects. Students work in pairs on daily stations, so completing self-directed activities where they get some help from their teachers and also some help from each other. And then larger group activities. This includes group activities over a over a month or over a semester, or kind of 1-day activities. This can include rocket launches, egg drops, and capstone projects. So I'll be talking about some of the main themes that came out of this research built around the specific employability skills that students learn within the context of these courses. I'll lead off with a quote from one of the employers that we interviewed for the study that set the context for what they're looking for from these students. So Brandon, who was a division lead at a large utility company, said, if I were looking for someone that was working the machine shop, I'd be looking for the type of person that shows an interest and at 4 o'clock isn't walking out the door, that doesn't mind staying for a few minutes. I'm not saying hours, I'm saying 5-10 minutes to make sure they understand what they've been doing or just to finish a little task. So teachers understood that students need to show initiative and to be self-motivated in order to be competitive in the local workforce. Teachers admitted that sometimes the so-called grunt work or less appealing course assignments during 9th and 10th grade are intended to weed out or encourage the students who are less motivated to switch out of these courses, leaving students who are more self-motivated to continue through the program and complete the 3 or 4 courses in these Career Academy programs. So they use self-directed, loosely supervised tasks to help students develop the responsibility and self-discipline that will be expected on the job. The teachers acknowledge that the daily routine provides a specific structure. Students know what to expect when they come in for class, much in the way that they would know what to expect when they come into work every day. They assign hands-on activities, but utilize a hands-off approach. So much of the time, teachers will introduce an activity at the beginning of class and let students largely figure out how to complete those activities on their own with minimal instruction. And students generally appreciate how teachers balance help and independence. One student, Chris, at Horton High School, and of course, these are pseudonyms for both the students in the high school. Chris said that Mr. Holt's not really a person that holds your hand. He prepares you for the real world. Doug, a student at Payne High School, said, you aren't getting lectured on something when you could be learning something else or whatever. So these quotes show how students appreciate the level of independence, and they acknowledge that they're given the opportunity within these assignments to develop this type of personal responsibility that they'll need in the real world. Teachers also saw part of their job as instilling an engineering mindset and work ethic. Alan, who was vice president of sales for a medium-sized engineering design manufacturer, said typically if you have an engineering type of mind, you kind of want to learn. You kind of want to fix things, and you play around your house with projects and whatnot. And employers believe that passion and genuine interest translated into work ethic. So they asked students about their hobbies in interviews as a proxy for actual work experience. And I'm sorry I made this point earlier about personal responsibility, but yeah, teachers, wanted to leave behind the most motivated students in order to help students take charge of their own education. Mr. Palmer from Payne High School said, I will teach them as little or as much as they want to know. So student work ethic was fueled by strong motivation beyond just getting good grades. It was fueled by genuine passion for the material. Students powered through assignments and activities they didn't like. They did admit some of the daily assignments. The station work was a bit of a chore, but their passion shined through in their individual design projects, in their group projects. And so they were willing to devote time outside of class for the projects in their areas of interest. Moving on to interpersonal skills, employers stress teamwork and helping behavior. Alan, who's one of our more loquacious interviewees, he said when we're looking for a person, be it in sales or from a technician standpoint, internal, they're going to be talking to our customers. They're going to be talking to other employees. They're involved in the process. We're a small business. They can't hide. Without getting too much into the industry perspective, the employers really stressed that there was a big difference between working for small businesses, again, which make up the majority of advanced manufacturing firms in the region, and larger businesses, more international, national companies. In the small businesses, workers are expected to do a lot more. They're expected to engage with customers, engage with clients, and regularly collaborate with each other, as opposed to in the larger companies where they could work more independently. They did not necessarily need to be more extroverted in their approach to the daily work. Teachers acknowledge the need for these teamwork skills, and they encourage students to work together and to help each other. Students drew a strict contrast between their CTE, their career and technical education courses that were more casual and open versus their math and science courses that were more rigid. Noah, a student at West High School, described his math and science courses as learn the material, take the test, whereas the CTE courses emphasize collaboration with others, working around problems, and using limited materials to address and solve specific problems. Students also noted that what would be considered cheating in their chemistry or physics courses is normal in their career academies. Derek talked about how he knew students from his other classes and said if one of us knew a problem, one of us would just go over there and help them, like teach them how to work it out, how to do it, like collaboration. I mean, he specifically used the word collaboration. And students specifically said, we're learning teamwork skills in these classes. Other students discussed, using the flexibility in completing their assignments as a way to, serve in more of a mentor role, helping other students complete their group assignments. Leadership and conflict management. Paul is a senior engineer for a product design and development company, and he gave some examples of how leadership and conflict management factors into everyday work experiences. Said anybody that we bring into the studio has to have some softer skills, like the ability to communicate, the ability to critically analyze ideas, the ability to not be protective of your ideas. Because here you will go through 100 good ideas to get one great idea, and you have to be willing to get rid of it. You have to basically come up with an idea and be willing to let it die right in front of you. And that's a very hard skill for a lot of people. So teachers use these group projects to imbue students with the confidence to lead and to be led. And students describe specifically what Paul is talking about. Noah mentioned how group members will come into a project with a specific idea, but they have to work together to transform that idea to make one final project. Dana said you can't be closed-minded. You need to get that other person to tell you when you're wrong as well. My last slide. Employers also want employees who have good social skills and respect each other. Lisa, Vice President of Operations for a small manufacturer, said, we have 35 employees. And in a smaller group like that, it takes one employee to change the tone for the day. So nobody gets hidden, right? So small companies require more social skills than large companies. And teachers sought to kind of maintain a friendly, cooperative and congenial classroom. A lot of the employers talked about how, especially the family-owned companies talked about how their company is like a family. Students also describe their class as like a family, particularly in reference to class-wide projects. Laura talked about being one of the few girls in these classes. These, of course, like many STEM fields, are male-dominated. And so in her experience, she had to learn how to get along with the guys. And she said, I can't just be the quiet one. I have to put myself out there and be like, I'm here, don't ignore me. So general conclusions, employers are willing to train up workers with good employability skills and basic technical skills. Some even hire directly from these high school CTE programs. The students talk about jobs that they get at 16, 17 years old. The employer is talking about using their contacts as on these advisory boards to hire students right out of school. Of course, some of the employers blame K through 12 education for the lack of skilled workers. Teachers, and some of the teachers actually come into the classroom with workforce experience. They try to model their classroom after the workplace by using real world projects and activities and building an atmosphere around collaboration, and collegiality. And students are very aware of the employability skills that they acquire. They specifically credit specific assignments for their own personal growth and growth in social skills, and they acknowledge the benefits and challenges of working in groups. Thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Will Tyson, for your insightful presentation. Also, thank you to Dr. Jeffrey Matul and Dr. Shia Seitha for your presentations. We are come now towards the end. We are approaching the end of the first session, and we have some time for Q&A. Unfortunately, I cannot go over all the questions that have been directed to our panelists. However, I have summarized at least a question for each one of you, and I ask you to be brief in your comments and answers. I will start with Dr. Matul, and we have a question specifically about what has been going on in your country regarding the employability skills of the integration of employability skills in Kenya. And one of the participants is asking, how has the topic of guidance and counseling and providing guidance services to students has been integrated into your national policy or framework? The floor is yours, Dr. Matul.
Thank you. And I put the response in the chat, but I'll just keep it brief. So this is obviously something that is being prioritized in the national framework. What is unfortunate, and going back to the presentation, was that there's a lot of limited resources. So it is being done in an ad hoc manner. So it's not fully integrated. And I think when you look at the space of just the vocational and technical education, it's mostly focused on the skills, whether it's technical or soft skills. And then the career guidance comes at the tail end of the process. That said, there is an effort in terms of ensuring that each institution from K to 12, there's a beginning of trying to get students to begin understanding, when you grow up, what would you like to be? And then working backwards in terms of having touch points with career guidance counselors to begin to help them, whether it's selecting the right courses that helps them to develop the skills that they're looking for in terms of industry. And that's more so when you begin getting to the level of 8 to 12, where it's more pronounced. But again, I will highlight that this is being done in an ad hoc manner. I'm sure if you talked to a lot of education institutions, you'll have some who will highlight examples that are working, but there are others where examples are still in the very early stage. But there is effort by the government, particularly when you look at the backdrop of high unemployment and underemployment in the country.
Thank you so much. For sure, a long road ahead for all of us regarding this issue. And we will get back to you, Dr. Matul, because I have one of the questions that actually would like for us to wrap up in this session, which is for all of you. So my second question will be for Dr. Shia, and it's actually a double question. And some of our attendees were asking if you can provide examples of functional skills that can be applied in the educational curriculum. The second half of the question is there a close relationship between an individual's professional development and his social environment?
Thank you for the question.
I think Dr. Shia is having some connection issues, perhaps. If that is the case, I will move to Dr. Tyson and come back to Dr. Shia. Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Tyson, one of the questions
skills that
yes, I think we lost momentarily.
I'm
Our
sorry.
Oh.
The connection was yeah, it was bad.
Dr. Shia, do you want us to come back to you in a few minutes so you have time to recover from the bad connection? Or do you want to continue?
Let's continue. Can you hear me now, clearly?
Yes.
Okay, come back to the skills that consider functional now. We look into the 4C, communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. These are very high in demand in Cambodian context. But I also would like to add, as I have put in the recommendation, the information digital technology skills are also very important in today's society. Plus, in Cambodian society, people have to have a good proficiency in English in order to get a good job in Cambodian society. So I think foreign language, as this is the age of globalization, internationalization, so proficiency in foreign language is also important if we want to get connected. I don't mean just English, but it depends on the country context. So foreign language is what keep people connected from one country to another, and this is very important in today's society. Second question, I think
It was about
this is
the relationship
yeah.
between the individual's professional development and the social environment.
From a sociological perspective, this is really a big yes, because the how people grow up will of course affect their interests. So exposure, like for example, a person that has a father as an engineer, that might also pick up interest in this kind of thing, because he or she sees the way her father works and the tools, the equipment, and all of this, and also the family might also shape, influence in terms of taking the children to schools and so on. So this actually not all the case though, but in 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 a sense that the exposure is there from the beginning, and the early exposure is actually very important. Although later, a student will also exposed to their peers. But again, in Cambodian Asian society, families still have a strong influence even after high school graduation to university. As a student still need support from their family, financial support for their study at the university. So in Cambodia, it's a very big yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I will move to Dr. Will Tyson before I, leave a last question for all of you to answer. And one of our attendees was reflecting on the partnerships between education and employment. And we would like to know your opinion about strengthen these partnerships through an actionable approach by creating a training matrix for students focused on professional projects that meet the job market requirements. How do you feel about having a matrix, that is focused on professional projects?
Right. Yeah. It's by matrix, you mean like a formal agreement, a formal kind of rubric, something that's mutually developed by industry and education. And yeah, I definitely think that's what we need to be working toward. We see this somewhat informally in terms of teachers who have experience in the workforce, or teachers who go out and develop industry contacts and develop these partnerships in terms of bringing speakers, or getting equipment, getting funding, and so forth. And we also see this motivated by the industry side in terms of being on advisory boards, developing contacts in the schools, targeting these programs. But a lot of times it's not a specific formal connection, like you're talking about here, in terms of a specific matrix or a specific plan of action. I would like to see more, more formal kind of ground up approach to developing this, with more engagement from the district and the county perspective. Acknowledging that in order to have a strong workforce, we need to have a strong education system. And I think that that is something that we know but putting that into practice is a little bit more difficult, because there's always a large potential workforce out there. I also feel like there's generation gaps between the folks who own and run these businesses and the students coming out of high school. Right now, here in the U.S., we have a large baby boomer cohort that is entering retirement. They are working in these manufacturing firms, and then they are, trying to replace that cohort with, so-called Gen Alpha, Gen Z young people who have a very different orientation towards work than they have. And so cooperatively developing frameworks for infusing employability skills in the curriculum is one way of kind of standardizing the knowledge, not just the knowledge that employers want, but the knowledge that young people have. For example, navigating social media. That's something that is a skill, an employability skill that could be necessary in the workplace, that could be better employed by employers.
For sure. Thank you so much. I will ask you, I will leave with a last question. I will ask you in a minute, each one of you, to try to answer to one of the concerns that we all have. So one of the questions from our attendees states that the job market requires students to acquire skills from the beginning of their education, which is kind of true, of course. However, since the job market changes from year to year, does this mean that the curricula needs to be updated annually? Or in other words, how can we face a changing job market and still, educate our students to have the skills that are needed for this changing job market? I will start with Dr. Matul. 1 minute, please.
Thank you, and I'll even try to keep it less than a minute. I would hesitate when you say change in the curriculum. If you're looking, maybe I can use Dr. Tyson's example. If you're doing something in math, for example, there's certain basics that haven't changed in a long time. So I would say those probably you don't need to adapt change the curriculum significantly. But if you're looking at evolving fields, so in the space of technical education, in terms of training someone on machinery, if that machinery is no longer in existence, yes, that obviously calls for making sure that you're relevant and you're changing the curriculum. But I would hesitate, because I think we see a lot of the challenges with, when we talk about rapidly changing economy, and everyone quickly assumes, let's go change the curriculum. But I would say if the curriculum is teaching foundational knowledge, that probably will not change. But if it's things that are very specific to a skill set, if you're doing, if you're developing skills that are no longer relevant, yes, focus on changing that part of the curriculum. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Matul. Dr. Shia?
Right, that is a good question, and I would agree with Dr. Matu on this issue that, of course, curriculum need to be updated regularly, either in a 3 or 5 year cycle, but we need to teach them the basic knowledge so that they can survive. And what I actually we didn't mention is actually a skill that we should also teach students as well. As in the comparison that we need to teach them how to fish, not to give them just fish, right? An important skill is the lifelong learning skills. So students need to be taught to be independent learner together with the knowledge and digital technology skill. Then they can find a lot of platforms that they can do a self-learning. And at the same time, they also need to be prepared for to be able to do self-management, self-motivation, and so on. These are also important skills, soft skills in today's society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Will.
Yeah, I'll echo those 2 points. We need to change curriculum and update it, but yeah, this is why we want to teach students these employability skills, because this helps students gain, well, specifically the flexibility and problem-solving skills that they need to adapt to a changing workforce and changing needs in a changing society, but also the foundational personal responsibility and work ethic that they need to work through the new problems that emerge. I'll say this on a large scale. Here in the state of Florida, one thing I've been impressed by with the high schools and the community college, more specifically, is that they are very adaptable to changes in industry, changes both at the state level, national level, and the local level. So, for example, if a new industry comes into town, the community college is quick to engage that new company and say, okay, what do you need us to do? What type of role should we have in training the new workforce? And so I appreciate that coming from a four-year university where I equate that to like turning a cruise ship. You can do it, but it's a tedious process. It takes some time. K through 12 and community college institutions have a little bit more flexibility there in terms of creating a curriculum around what's going on in the local context.
Thank you so much for your participation in our first session today. I want to thank Dr. Matu, Dr. Shia, and Dr. Will Tyson for their insightful presentations. And this brings us to the end of the first session and the beginning of the second one. Thank you so much for attending today. And I will present our next two speakers. And I will start with Dr. Amin Amar, an associate professor of applied mathematics and data science at Al Qawan University in Morocco. Dr. Amar is an expert in public policy assessment and risk management, with research spanning several sectors, including education and sustainable energy. Today, he will present on integration of industry-relevant skills, focus on AECP design model, and work-based learning. Please welcome Dr. Amin. Dr. Amin, I think you are muted.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you.
So
No
thank you
worries.
very much, Dr. Patricia, for the presentation. So I will share with you my screen. So everything here. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So thank you very much for the presentation. So I'm Amin Ammar, an associate professor of applied mathematics and data science in Al Qawan University in Morocco. I have also another hat, administrative hat, as a coordinator of capstone and internship projects So in the middle of education, academia, and also industry. And it's my pleasure to participate to this seminar about the integration of employability curriculum organized by the Regional Center for Educational Planning. I would also like to thank the RCEP team for the initiative and invitation. And my contribution is more about the integration of industry relevant skills with a focus on one specific model and design model and work-based learning. So my presentation is more about a call to actions because as Dr. Tyson said, the engineering mindset is more about to understand the issues and problems and also to suggest solutions and to identify also optimal actions. So probably I will start by the end and this can be considered as a call to action to contribute so each others to this beautiful project about education. So as the coordinator of a capstone and internship projects, you know that the employability enhancements and also the strengthening of the liaison with the company are ones of major preoccupations of the university and also of the schools. And the interaction with the companies and the identification also of their needs are highlighting today the educational potential of the rapid global economy and stresses also the need of new paradigms. And we are talking about here new strategies, new curriculum, and the flexible structure. And this new paradigms requires the implementation of new strategies, okay? And this new strategy encompasses the key elements and skills of our students. We can talk about the traditional ones, academic achievement, technical proficiencies, and the qualifications. But it's not only the thing we need to extend towards a new skills. And here we are talking about interpersonal aptitude and personal attributes. And more, we are talking today about reaction capacity and resilience of students. So all of these skills come from the interaction with a company. So we are talking here about resilience. We are talking about the capacity to adapt. And this will implies, of course, will have an impact on the context of the university because the reaction capacity and the resilience requires a continuous improvement of the curriculum. So universities need to reassess the curriculum, need to prioritize the integration of industry relevant skills, and also need to think about collaborative efforts from various stakeholders and also to improve the communication between academia and industry. And we see that we have more focus on a student, we have more focus on a curriculum, but we don't have this focus on also the academy, the industry, and normally the need comes from the industry because the interaction will suggest, of course, we will have different problems and we have different needs, and this will, of course, increase the resilience and also the capacity to adapt in terms of content support, in terms of life coaching, in terms of study strategies, and also academic planning. So today, the question is not to convince academia and university about the importance of the collaboration, but the challenging thing is how to rethink this dynamic of interaction between academia and industry as an integrated and holistic fashion, especially in the era of AI and new technologies. And if you remember, you asked a question about the education as a static knowledge and also if it is a flow. So I'm considering the education as a flow. It's not a static, of course. And this is why I'm talking here about the dynamics, and it's the dynamics of interaction between academia in, of course, a genuine environment. in the era of AI and technology. So today the question is how to immerse students in this environment. And I'm focusing here on effective method for embedding industry relevant skills into the curriculum, because this is the main challenging thing. So how to interact with a company and also industry to extract information, to have feedbacks, and to prioritize, of course, the tasks to be implemented. And if we want to implement this effective method for embedding industry, we need an experiential learning opportunities. And here we have, of course, the benefits from different stakeholders, for different stakeholders. So internship opportunities for students, cooperative education programs, of course, for the university and the academia, and also industrial projects for the industry, because we have different solutions, we have different, of course, contexts, and we can suggest to industry optimal solutions. So this is the vision, and this is the strategy, and probably we ask a question, and it's a good question, how we can implement this. Is it theoretical? No, it's not theoretical, it's a vision, but we have the implementation, of course, from different contexts. This was implemented in 2 different semesters. So we have here what you see in the right, the employability skills, the information skills, the communication skills, and we have different courses, and we have the level of the program, and we have the level of the classrooms, and you see here that we have semester 1 and semester 2, and this is the implementation that comes from the interaction between the companies and the university. So we cannot conduct this implementation, and we cannot tailor this implementation, of course, without a data. So the first presentation, the first panelist also provides a survey, and from this survey we have a data. And my suggestion here, my call to action is first to conduct a social network analysis, because we have different stakeholders, academia, students, government, and we have also the industry. So we have different interaction, and we don't have uniform distribution of the needs. So we need to take into consideration these conflictual situations, because we have probably 2 different time horizons. Research is more long-term, but industry and production is short-term. So we need the social network to be more practical and objective and to identify interactions. So social network is just a powerful tool for visualization and understanding and harnessing the power of networks and relationships. And the data or results from the social network can help us to implement the theoretical knowledge in real-world scenarios, to acquire valuable industry insight, but efficiently, to cultivate transferable skills, and also to have an idea about best practices. Because in academia, of course, or in like universities, we have the feasibility study of the projects, but without this interaction with the company, we cannot have an idea about the legal framework. We cannot have an idea about the institutional framework. And this is why I'm talking here about best practices. So this is my first suggestion. My second suggestion is to implement what we call triple helix model. And this is a design model, because after the identification of the needs and the interactions, we need a model that comprises process and the methods and approaches to identify framework activities. So I'm talking here about what kind of main activities. So here, for example, we know that we have students with technical skills, lateral thinking, skills, understanding, and so on. We have the industry which can supervise the students in a project. We have the academia engage industrial professional, but this model will help us to find and to identify a framework for planning, for analysis, specifications, review, design, and implementation of feedback rework. So this is my second suggestion and my second call to actions. So after this, the implementation of this triple helix model can give us a clear idea about academia industry collaboration. So here you can see that you have the innovative idea, you have the change request, you have the proposed investment policy, industry and industrial, of course, the project and the change request with different interactions in terms of models, in terms of cost and budget, in terms of strategic framework, and also in terms of communication patterns. Because we need to think about this as a complicated problem. It's not a very simple questions. We have different needs, and we need to enhance the employability skills of our students, but it should be doable, it should be feasible. So this is why here we have the cost and budget plan. This is why we have the implementation and also the strategic framework. And the academia industrial collaboration as a framework that comes from this model can give us, of course, different like components. So we have the collaboration process, we have like the funding, we have the incubators, we have the workshop, the seminars, the certificates, probably the MOOCs, so the tools that will be used. So we have the process, we identify them from the triple helix model, we have the method and technique that we will implement, and we have also the tools. So you see here that we have different levels, of course, of the implementation. And the fruitful collaboration and the implementation of my previous two suggestions can provide results about the work-based learning. So all of us, so industry, academia, students are aware about the importance and the interesting suggestion of the work-based learning as a success story of an educational strategy. But the issue here is how to optimize this work-based learning. So after the identification of interactions from the social network, after the identification of a process and the tools, we have now the optimal work-based learning, and this can be considered as a tailored one. So here, the employers, the industry can drive the program and engage with internal and external partners and collaborate efficiently on the design, implementation, recruitment, and we have here efficient, large pattern of support services. We can talk about monitoring, we can talk about coaching, tutoring, and help with personal barriers, and this can be considered, of course, as triggers behind, of course, the apprenticeship, the classroom and real-life work experience, and also on the job training examples. So here I have three suggestions, and now my takeaways. It's not recommendations, but I'm here just to call for actions and to collaborate. So all experts can collaborate, of course, and can bring the piece of knowledge to this beautiful project of education, how to enhance the employability skills of our students. And the focus is more on innovation. And here the innovation concept, it's not to invent something which is new, but it's the result of the collaboration of people with different and diverse expertise. This is the innovation, of course. The second takeaway is to be more agile and proactive. And this is associated with the initial question, so education, the basic skills, and the change in world. So if we enhance the capacity of our students to be more agile and proactive, we can solve the issue without any problem. And I'm talking here about practical things. So adaptive learning can be considered, of course, as one good solution to construct knowledge. And what we did before with different universities, of course, because I know that you have the same experience probably. So we have collaborative online international learning with different universities. We can do it, of course, with different, also with the companies, with industry, with the certifications, of course, and seminars and workshop. And please don't forget that we don't innovate for someone, for students, we innovate with someone. So all stakeholders need to, of course, to collaborate, to enhance the ability and the skills of our students for the employability. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amin. I was muted. I want to I want to remind our attendees that they can share their comments and questions to our panelists on the Q&A chat box. And we are moving towards to the end of our second session today. And we have Dr. James Robson, Director of the Oxford University Centre for Skills, Knowledge and Organizational Performance. His research focuses on the intersection of education, training, and work, with a particular emphasis on policies, approaches, and skills development. Dr. James has advised numerous governments and international organizations on education and workforce issues. He will be speaking on From Policy to Practice, Strategic Approaches to Embedding Employability Skills in the Curriculum. Let's give him a warm welcome. Dr. James, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much. Let me just check whether I'm sharing my screen. Does that work?
Yes, it works. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for the introduction. As mentioned, I'm Director of the Centre for Skills, Knowledge and Organisational Performance, that's SCOPE, at the University of Oxford. As a research centre, SCOPE's work is focused on the intersection between education and training and work. And that covers everything from skill supply and demand to behaviour and performance of education institutions and individual labour market outcomes. However, a big part of our work is focused on education and training policy. Therefore, in this presentation, I want to zoom out a bit from students, educators and institutions to a more macro level and discuss the policy perspective. Specifically, I'm going to discuss the ways in which policymakers can approach the process of embedding employability skills in schools' curricula and some of the key challenges associated with this. To start, I think it's clear, not least from the discussion so far today, that education and training policymakers should prioritise embedding employability skills in schools' curricula K-12. This is an essential part of preparing students for the rapidly evolving workforce and ensuring they possess essential life skills to flourish in a changing labour market. We're all very well aware that as industries shift with technological advancements, particularly in fields like AI and broader technological innovations, students will need more than academic knowledge. They need broader and transferable skills such as critical thinking, communication, and collaboration to thrive in diverse work environments. These sorts of skills will be critical in supporting young people to transition effectively into the labour market, even if they continue in education and training at tertiary level before attempting to get a job. Research clearly shows that having effective and demonstrable employability skills will ensure that those entering the labour market, particularly for the first time, will be stronger in a competitive hiring process and make smoother transitions. This becomes even more important in times of economic strain when labour markets become tighter. Supporting young people to gain work in these kinds of conditions is an important part of avoiding the scarring effects of youth unemployment on long-term career trajectories. Perhaps more importantly, it's clear that most people will need to change jobs and sectors numerous times during their working lives, often having multiple careers. Transferable skills are a key part of enabling employees to navigate the labour market in a flexible and agentic way in the longer term. Critically, integrating these competencies early equips students with the mindset of lifelong learning, further increasing their adaptability to career mobility. Of course, all this benefits employers as well, who are keen to have work-ready employees. Employer survey data from around the world clearly shows transferable skills are in constant and high demand. This supports national economic growth by producing a workforce that meets industry demands. So, from a policy perspective, embedding employability skills into the K-12 curriculum seems obvious. It's part of creating a more resilient, capable and flexible workforce. It enhances future employability across sectors. It contributes to a reduction in skills gaps and shortages, and is part of a broader drive towards improvement in productivity and economic growth. However, things are never that simple. In this presentation, I'm going to make three main points about the policy challenges involved in embedding employability skills in schools. I'm going to illustrate these by referring to a really interesting policy initiative in England, the Studio Schools model. Very briefly, introduced in 2010, the Studio Schools model was an innovative approach to secondary education that combined academic learning with practical work-related experience to develop employability skills. Designed for students aged 14 to 19, Studio Schools operated more like workplaces than traditional schools, with a curriculum that integrated core subjects alongside project-based learning and real-world work placements. Each student had a personalized learning plan tailored to their career interests, which was reinforced by partnerships with local businesses and industry professionals. These schools emphasized promoting skills like teamwork, problem solving, and resilience, and the goal was to bridge the gap between school and work, helping students become better prepared for the job market by focusing on skills that are directly relevant to employers, while still ensuring students achieve essential academic qualifications. To my mind, the Studio Schools model was exemplary, and it was a direct set of policy interventions that enabled and funded the establishment of 40 of these schools across England. However, sadly, as an innovative approach to embedding employability skills in the curriculum, it failed. Almost all Studio Schools have now reverted back to operating in a traditional manner, focused solely on academic outcomes, losing innovative approaches like project-based learning and working directly with employers. Scope analysed this trajectory and the ways in which key policy challenges in innovating around employability skills, associated regulatory frameworks, the role of employers, and the inexorable pull of the academic status quo all combined to doom this approach to failure. Policy ambitions so often struggle against the messy realities of education and training systems, and so important policy lessons can be learned from the Studio Schools experiment that I think are applicable across a wide range of international contexts. The first key issue that I want to refer to, that I want to raise, refers to what I like to call the regulatory conundrum. This relates to the tension between a traditional academic focus in schools and employability. There is the major challenge of attempting to find ways of fitting the formation of employability skills into an already strained curriculum. Time in schools is always at a premium. Instructional time is always limited and is inevitably tightly scheduled around core academic subjects and standardized testing requirements. Balancing academic demands with the need for employability skills requires thoughtful curriculum design and potentially even reprioritizing learning objectives. Given that research points to the importance of project-based learning and interdisciplinarity in forming employability skills, this may involve developing interdisciplinary projects cutting across standard disciplinary silos, which requires careful planning, resources, and often additional teacher training to be effective without increasing the instructional load. This may sound like a practical issue, and to a certain extent it is, but at its heart, the key challenge involves finding ways to integrate employability skills without overwhelming teachers and students or compromising academic rigor. However, for most countries, regulatory frameworks for schools are structured solely around academic outcomes. Measures of teaching quality and centralized approaches to quality assurance focus on academic measures and academic targets. Schools, particularly secondary schools, are all too often geared around high-stakes academic examinations, usually broken down into distinct disciplines. And at the heart of almost every national schooling system is the embedded assumption that an academic trajectory towards a university education is the gold standard. This is reflected in and reproduced through almost every national regulatory framework and quality assurance scheme in the world. Employability skills are largely irrelevant from a regulatory perspective. Academic standards and employability skills shouldn't be positioned in a zero-sum game between each other. They should, in fact, complement each other. However, if regulatory frameworks place no value on the vocational aspect of the curriculum, inevitably, in a time-constrained, high-pressure context, teachers will focus on the areas that do feature in regulation, i.e., academic outcomes. Regulatory approaches, if not appropriately changed to actually value employability skills, inevitably pull schools in the direction of disciplinary silos and academic outcomes. Project-based learning and interdisciplinarity don't naturally lend themselves to these kinds of measures, and so all too easily get lost and abandoned in a high-stakes academic context. This means standard regulatory frameworks will always squeeze employability skills out of the curriculum. This was the key lesson from the Studio Schools model. Policymakers provided funding and encouragement around foregrounding employability in an innovative manner, but failed to change the regulatory mechanisms for the schools that were actually attempting to do something new and exciting. The innovative activity wasn't valued and so inevitably was abandoned in the face of regulatory pressures. This is the conundrum. Policymakers want employability skills to feature in the curriculum, but actually radical regulatory reform is required to make this happen. Few people have the appetite to do this. This is linked with the second key policy issue that I want to highlight. That research has clearly shown that employability skills are best developed in the workplace. Now, of course, this is partly age-specific, and no one is suggesting that kindergarten children should have work placements. But when it comes to 14+, there is a pretty clear agreement that direct work experience is very beneficial for young people and is linked with the formation of broad transferable skills. This requires input and engagement from employers. However, this presents several practical challenges. First, many employers, especially small and medium-sized businesses, may lack the time, resources, or staffing to consistently support school programs, as these commitments can be time-intensive and require careful coordination. Additionally, aligning the goals and schedules of businesses with the school calendar and curriculum needs can be difficult, as employers often operate on different timelines and may have varying expectations about the skills students should acquire. There's also the challenge of ensuring that work placements and projects offer meaningful, hands-on learning experiences rather than simply filling administrative roles that provide limited skill development. This falls to schools, and developing and maintaining partnerships and ensuring high-quality placements requires time, resources, and infrastructure. These logistical hurdles, along with differences in organizational cultures and priorities, make sustained, impactful employer involvement challenging to achieve on a large scale. The issue also has the potential to underpin a range of inequalities at the heart of schooling systems. Schools with the best resources, links, and even cultural capital with employers, cultural capital through parental and personal contacts, are most likely to develop strong relationships with employers and facilitate high-quality work experience for their students. This is potentially compounded by regional inequalities within nations. Some areas will have constrained labour markets, high levels of unemployment, or simply a low-skills economy. This means that the opportunities for work experience are fundamentally limited at structural, economic, and geographic levels. These practical issues were apparent in our analysis of the Studio Schools model, where different schools in different regions had very different experiences. Critically, all schools were stretched by the logistical burden of trying to work with employers who were largely uninterested in participating in education and training. This raises the broader policy question of how to engage employers in the process of skills formation. Again, this may seem like a simple practical issue. However, employer engagement is fundamentally related to the way in which underpinning policy structures position employers in the economy and in relation to education and training. It's a complex policy issue rooted in the macro relationship between education and training policy and industrial strategy. In many policy contexts, the relationship between education and training and employers is one of skill supply and demand. Employers demand skills required in their industry, and policymakers attempt to shape the skills supply side to ensure skills needs are met. Skills shortages, skills gaps, and the changing nature of work are consequently viewed as supply side issue, with the education and training system needing to respond appropriately. In fact, emphasis on the need for employability skill formation to happen in schools often starts with the argument about employer needs. However, a simple linear relationship between skills supply and demand can risk positioning employers simply as customers of a skills system with rights to skill supply. Rights may be linked with some kind of tax burden or skills levy. This kind of relationship, where employers are seen as customers with consumer rights, is not conducive to active employer engagement in the process of skills formation. Our analysis of policy structures globally has shown that this approach inevitably pushes employers outside this process of skills formation. Rather, policy approaches that emphasize employers as having responsibilities as well as rights are far more conducive to active employer engagement. This is the second key issue, the employer conundrum. Given that the formation of employability skills requires employer engagement, what are the policy levers that can ensure employers shift from being customers with consumer rights to having real roles and responsibilities in schooling? This brings me to my final key macro level policy issue, that key assumptions about the nature of governance of education and training in the form of the underpinning policy architecture really matter. The point here is that the way in which regulatory policy is structured and the way the relationship between employers and education and training is positioned are both rooted in the broader political philosophy of the policy context. Now, our comparative research of different education and training systems has shown that more laissez-faire approaches to managing the sector focus on the invisible hand of the market as the core mechanism of governance. This places competition between institutions, schools, colleges, or universities as the main mechanism of driving quality, and positions the role of the state as one of market regulator rather than taking an active coordinating role. This approach inevitably leads to a vertically stratified education and training sector with different institutions competing for positions within a hierarchy. Where societies value traditional academic pathways, institutions with the strongest academic outcomes are positioned at the top of the hierarchy. In marketized approaches, the state has to regulate for those academic factors. This is why in market-based models, regulatory frameworks get stuck focusing solely on academic measures and struggle with introducing a more diverse range of regulatory approaches that might value vocational aspects in the curriculum. Market-based approaches lean towards the vicious cycle of regulation that squeezes out employability skills. Similarly, under market conditions, the dominance of neoliberal ideologies means that employers are all too easily positioned as customers with consumer rights, and so see little value in fully engaging in the process of skills formation. The contrasting policy approach to governance is a skills-based, systems-based model, where the state takes a more active approach in the coordination of the sector. This leads to what we refer to as horizontal diversity, with a broader range of complementary offerings across the system. Our research shows that this kind of governance approach and underpinning policy architecture is more conducive to the introduction of more vocational aspects into the curriculum and will likely enable regulatory mechanisms that can value employability skills alongside academic qualifications. Similarly, values of collaboration rather than competition are more likely to provide both the conditions and the levers for more meaningful employer engagement. Now, all of this is to say that while embedding employability skills in the curriculum is increasingly important, the policy challenges are significant and often run far deeper than necessarily appear at first sight. I don't want to offer solutions here, as I haven't got the time for that in this short presentation. However, key to this is inevitably, I think, rethinking regulation and quality assurance approaches that actually value more than purely academic outcomes. Rethinking what meaningful employer engagement in skills formation actually looks like, and a rethinking of political philosophy that values horizontal diversity over vertical stratification, creates space for regulatory reform, and encourages collaboration rather than competition between key stakeholders, particularly employers. And with that, I'll finish. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. James Robinson. And our two guest speakers have just finished their presentations, and it's time for us to move to our Q&A questions. I have tried to summarize what our participants would like to ask to the panelists, and I will start with a question for Dr. Amin. And our participants, one of our participants has said that establishing effective partnerships with industry can often be hindered by differing expectations and timelines between education and business sectors, which is true. So sometimes there is a mismatch between, the expectations and timelines between business sectors, working sectors, and education. What specific incentives or partnership models have you found to be effective in encouraging long-term scalable collaborations?
Yes, so thank you very much for the question. And obviously, this is a fact, and this is a challenge and also a risk when we interact with industry. So we see this in a daily basis. Of course, when we interact for a collaboration with industry, so we have different needs and we have different, of course, different timelines, because already I said that we have two different timelines. So research and education is long-term, industry is it's a daily basis, of course, production, and this is the idea. Now, to answer the question, I think the first element is a communication, to enhance communication, because sometimes we don't have a clear visibility and vision about our needs. So a clear communication to enhance this long-term collaboration. And this is why I suggest a social analysis network, so we can have a clear vision about the needs. And I'm certain that we will have a trade-off. We can establish a trade-off between our needs. So this is the first thing. The second thing, and this is a call to action also, to establish a long-term collaboration. University needs to take the initiative first, not the industry, which means that a long-term collaboration is, for example, to invite industry to be present in our presentations, for example, like capstone project or internship. So this is a long-term. The second thing is to share with them surveys and to receive a feedback. So this is a long-term. To, for example, sometimes, so 1 day, 2 days, so to interact with them and to ask for their opinions. And this is, I think, is a good strategy for this long-term collaboration.
Thank you so much. And on that note, there is a question that is kind of a segue. Don't you think it's, you already answered partially to this question, but it would be a privilege. It would be something that it would be fruitful to have to consider a joint institutional project involving officials from all educational institutions, from kindergarten to higher education to ensure communications and alignment between them?
Yeah, of course. This is the idea, because a collaboration is very important thing, and a joint committee is also a good thing. And to have a joint industrial topic, and it's not something which is a theoretical. We did this. We already implement this in our university. So, for example, we encourage students, even if, for example, for a capstone research project, which is more theoretical, if they got interaction, they have interaction, with industry, they will have a bonus, which means we encourage our students take the initiative to interact with industry and to have a joint industrial topic. This is it on the student level. On the professors and faculty levels, also we encourage to have this collaboration, and also the board, committee board or directors also, we have industrial, of course, industrial like stakeholders.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Now I will move to Dr. James Robertson, and perhaps a little bit because you have provided us with an overview on policies. How underdeveloped countries can develop their educational policy despite the rapid pace of globalization and transnational companies and even digitization?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating question, and a major challenge. I think probably you'll have been able to tell from my presentation that, broadly speaking, I'm slightly cynical about some of these issues. I, strongly believe in the power and importance of policy change and policy engagement in driving forward employability skills and really embedding them in the curriculum, and in relation to sort of triple helix theory as well, in sort of building meaningful partnerships between state, universities or education and training providers and industry. But the reality is that there aren't, in my view, very good examples of this happening. Now, I really don't mean to sound too cynical here, but there are issues around regulatory frameworks that I've highlighted, which are challenging in any country, whether they're developing or more developed. But there's also, I think, issues around institutional capture, around different sorts of agendas being caught by different stakeholders in these systems. So from a policy perspective, in a more developing country, I think the challenge isn't just to engage industry in these sorts of discourses. A major challenge is to try and ensure that industry doesn't capture the process with a range of different sorts of agendas. And it's all too easy, I think, sadly, for industry to impose short-term employability needs on the sector. But by that, I mean just focusing on immediate skills gaps, immediate skill shortages that are needed for profit. Whereas actually from a policy perspective, it's really critical that policymakers take a longer term view of the kinds of skills that society needs and the broader economy needs. And that needs to take into account issues around climate change, issues around sustainability, often more profoundly important in more developing economies. And those sorts of emerging skills needs and longer term skills needs may sit in tension with the immediate values of employers and industry who, as I said, may look for quick term wins, quick term shortages, rather than something which may be more akin to economic transformation, which actually I think probably government should be aspiring to.
Well, that's fascinating. And the example that you brought to us from the studio schools is a bit sad that has happened. However, one of the questions that was mentioned on the first session, comes back to us at the end of the second session and of today's panel, which is, it is an evolving world that is happening out there, and yes, policies need to reflect more long-term goals rather than a quick fix for what's needed today. So on your perspective, how can we match this fast-paced change world of workplace with the need for more sustainable long-term policies and changes?
Yeah, and I think this is a real policy challenge. It's a real practical challenge as well. There's a lot of focus on, I think, embedding technical skills into curricula and at schools and university level. And all too often that can be dominated by a short-term mentality. And so if we expect particularly schools to be providing skills which meet immediate technical skills gaps, skill shortages, then this challenge of constantly trying to innovate and update curricula is really profound, and schools will always be behind. They'll always be behind the labour market, particularly as AI accelerates this process, as the nature of work changes. And that means that schools are always in deficit, and that's really problematic. And I think, it's really demoralizing, apart from anything else, for teachers involved in that kind of situation, that kind of relationship with the labour market. That's why I think actually what we're talking about now is really important, which is broader transferable employability skills, which have a longer life in the labour market, which enable people to navigate that kind of instability. I mean, the skills needs have and are going increasingly febrile. The change is constant, and it's, in my view, only by actually empowering young people with these sorts of flexible skills that enable them to navigate change and navigate uncertainty, that actually a healthy relationship between education and training in schools and the labour market can be fostered. If we're just putting short-term needs all the time on schools, then they're going to struggle and going to suffer, and that deficit model is really problematic. But actually, if teachers and then young people are empowered to think about flexibility and navigate uncertainty, then the schooling system has a much more clear and, importantly, stable role. It's not constantly trying to catch up, because those sorts of transferable skills are much more stable and have a much longer life, as I mentioned.
Yes, for sure. So one last question for both of you, as we wrap up today's session. What is your opinion on one of the things that were mentioned throughout today's session was that how difficult it is to have students placed in workplaces, in order to acquire those needed skills, when sometimes there is a mismatch of expectations about what we would like the students to be doing on those workplaces as practice, and what the employers can actually, the attention and the time that the employers can provide to these students that are learning those skills. So how about a model that would, and this is what I wanted to ask both of you, how about a model that will include something similar to what already happens in medicine, where we have, teaching hospitals? So how about developing those infrastructures that at the same time are a working place and a study place where, students could develop all sorts of different skills? And I will start perhaps with Dr. Amin.
Yes, it's a relevant questions, of course, and we are learning also, because this is a learning process. So to answer the first section of the question, how difficult is, it's very difficult and challenging. And the good idea is normally we can consider it as the opportunity and not a risk. Okay, so this is also a good opportunity. So the example that you provide is very insightful, because we start doing the same thing, and we have in our university we have labs, and those labs come from the companies, different companies. Of course, we have 2 or 3. Okay, we are a small campus, So we have 2 or 3 labs implemented by different companies, especially IT. So we have this interaction. So our students try to practice more and more, and we have also the need. And of course, it's a win-win situation because the company have the solution, the optimal solution, and also the prototype. It's not the final one, but this is an agile, of course, process. It's not the final solution, it's a prototype. And this, I think, it's one answer to answer your question. Of course, this is one solution. So we can start doing this and invite the companies in the university to implement the, of course, their labs. One thing I forgot also to mention is we invite also the companies to be like in the committee of selection of different projects, because we encourage our students not only to have a job, but also we encourage them to launch a project, so to have startups, their startups. And we invite the companies, of course, to provide the feedbacks and the good feedbacks, of course. So this is our one or two answers to your questions.
Well, it is a good start for sure. Thank you, Dr. Amin. Dr. James?
Thanks. Yeah, great question. And again, I think I agree, it's a challenge. At school level, I think, rather than university level, a really good example of a kind of approach where this works is the model that I refer to. So the studio school model, in theory, provided a very nice approach to really creating meaningful work placements. And that was really structuring the whole of the school activity around employment, around sort of combining academic issues or academic qualifications with an employability agenda. And that went right the way down to structuring the school day as a working day. So students are expected to work 9 till 5. And really sort of creating the idea that the school was a place of work, and then tying in theory again, really strong relationships with employers. So employers were actually fundamentally positioned in the school and supported detailed, meaningful work placements. The idea behind the model is that there's an innovative staffing structure as well, with a dedicated member of staff focused on really nurturing those kinds of employer-school relationships and really overseeing specific work placements and tailoring work placements to individual student need based on a kind of student learning journey. That theoretical model is, I think, really good and just stands out really well. And you see it in different sorts of technological colleges. You see it in charter schools in the US. These sorts of approaches all adopt the same kind of model and critically, I think, put at the heart of the approach a skills tracking framework. Now, in the studio schools model, that was called the CREATE framework, and it's an acronym for various skills. But having that ability to trace skills and link progression to work placement is all part of that approach. I think that's wonderful and can theoretically work really well, and that's what we should be aspiring for. The sad reality was that in the studio schools model, what happened was that the wider structural policy frameworks weren't adjusted to actually celebrate and take into account that innovation. And so the schools were judged on only academic outputs because of the regulatory frameworks that existed. And the employability aspects, these relationships with employers just weren't encouraged from a regulatory perspective. So the point is that you can change and encourage schools at an individual level, but unless you change that overarching policy landscape, they're kind of doomed to fail. And that's what's really important, that you have to change the policy landscape as well as support individual schools to flourish. And so that's what's so key to the way in which work placements can really succeed. It's part of that overall picture.
True, and perhaps, the evaluation of those types of schools to be done differently, right? they should not fall into the same framework than all the other schools. So evaluating them according to the same criteria does not seem very fair at this point. So thank you so much for your insightful comments. And as we conclude our seminar on integrating employability skills into the K-12 curriculum, I want to extend my gratitude to all our speakers and participants for sharing their valuable insights. Today's sessions have underscored the importance of preparing students not only with academic knowledge, but also with critical skills that will enable them to succeed in an ever-evolving workforce. From developing problem-solving abilities to fostering adaptability and collaboration, the skills we emphasize in K-12 will have a lasting impact on the students' futures. Let's carry forward the ideas and strategies discussed today as we continue our efforts to bridge education and employability effectively. Thank you once again for your engagement and commitment to this important work, and I wish you all a good evening and a good day. See you next time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.